Hello and welcome, and it is absolutely amazing to have you, Tony, again on this show. Tony, how are you doing?
Hi, Mark. I'm really well. I'm very excited about this conversation. Yeah, really looking forward to it.
That's absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for being here. It's really an honor and pleasure to have you, Tony. All right, so we have had everybody following this show. We have had already a discussion with Tony, and it was absolutely amazing. And feedback that we have received is that, oh, it was too short. There are so many things that I wanted personally to ask, and I didn't have the opportunity to ask because Tony is so rich that every time you ask him about something, you feel like you've read a book about it. He answers very, very generously and tells you so much that you get mesmerized just following and listening to the point where you forget what you wanted to ask, you forget what you wanted to follow up with. And then at the end of the discussion, I think I realized that maybe I had prepared something like 20 questions for the first interview, and maybe I asked five, maybe five. So today, I'm trying to do just a tiny little bit better. But thank you very much, Tony, for being here. Tony is an amazing person. He is a very, very, very respected author. Has many, many books already, among others, Tech Powered Sales and the Joshua Principle and other great stuff. Tony on LinkedIn, just to give you a very brief idea, Tony on LinkedIn is more than 300,000 followers. Yes, you did hear me correctly, 300,000 followers, which puts him as probably one of the best, if not the best, or the most well-known, actually, people who talk about sales on LinkedIn. I think, Tony, for many years, you were LinkedIn top voice number one on sales, correct?
Yeah. For a little while, I think LinkedIn has become a very noisy, kind of spammy platform in more recent years. But yes.
All right. So, frankly, I don't think I need to talk more about Tony. Tony is a celebrity, and you can read about him. Tony has already published many books. He is absolutely beloved, respected, and followed on LinkedIn and many other social media platforms. And today we have the honor and the pleasure to have Tony again. And I would like to start with this burning question, burning on my lips. Tony, first of all, of course, welcome to the show. And second, how do you see the role of AI and automation continuing to evolve, especially in sales? What I hear from friends and people I know is that it's doing really like amazing difference for a lot of companies that have already adopted AI. How do you see it going forward? And what will be, in your opinion, the biggest impact of AI on sales leaders?
Uh, AI is without doubt, Mark, uh, the game changing technology of the fourth industrial revolution that we're in right now. Uh, People really are on a very broad spectrum when it comes to AI. A lot of people are still relatively ignorant. People were fairly amazed initially when generative AI started doing some incredible things, making videos, creating art. Even if you look at the latest thing at the moment, which is Notebook LM from Google, the ability to upload the instruction manual for a washing machine and it automatically turns it into an interesting two-person podcast having a discussion about how to use your washing machine. It's incredible what the technology can do. But there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of apathy. But here's the reality: for every single white collar professional, every single knowledge worker on the face of the planet, you are at risk of losing your job not to AI, but to someone else in your profession that partners with AI incredibly well. So every single person needs to develop their what I call TQ, their technical quotient, and learn how to embrace a tech stack, especially AI, to make them superhuman. Really interestingly, Mark, just in about the last 3 months, about 3 months ago, Gartner published a recent survey. They published a report. What they found was 83% of sellers feel really overwhelmed. And, people can feel overwhelmed because of the size of the number they have to hit, the amount of work that they need to do, the difficulty of the task. But increasingly today, people are feeling overwhelmed because there's so much information it's like a fire hose being pointed at them. I definitely suffer with this every time I open up LinkedIn or my inbox with mail. I'm just drowning in outreach from people. But sellers are being asked to use an increasingly, sometimes bewildering array of tech. So developing our technical quotient is really, really important. And AI, if we use it well, can give us back time and improve the quality of what we're doing. I've worked with people that have taken, what's a 6 or 7 hour process of researching a big enterprise and working out what their strategy and drivers are and how we could potentially align. They can get all of that done in 30 minutes, right? Because they use generative AI, for example, to analyze a document. So there's lots of things we can do to give us back time.
Okay, that's absolutely amazing. Tony, it really hits me when you say 83% because that's almost everybody.
It is. It is. Almost everybody is feeling overwhelmed with what they need to get done. We're in a digital first world. People just increasingly are being forced to embrace more and more digital channels. I work with some of the biggest tech companies in the world. People like Salesforce and Workday and Adobe, companies like Qualtrics. I'm fortunate enough to be off to Vegas next month, keynoting at their global sales kickoff. But every one of these companies has their own preferred um, tech stack, right? So everybody you engage with has their different tech stack, So in every tool that you use starts hijacking all the settings in your machine. It's another login. It's another app you need to learn. There's more integrations. Integrations can often start to conflict. So salespeople are really dealing with this. They've got this CRM system that they barely use properly. A CRM on its own can be an overwhelming thing to really learn the capabilities of. Then they've got things like sales engagement platforms for automation. They've got sales intelligence tools. They're starting to work now with generative AI. The new skill that everybody needs to learn is prompt engineering. 5 years ago, everybody should have been good at Boolean search. How can I use the internet to find what I need? We'll learn how to construct a really effective Boolean search, create a library of these Boolean searches. Now it's a case of I need to create a library, have this incredible library of prompts. I need to become a prompt engineer so that the quality of the questions and the quality of the instructions I'm giving generative AI, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot, that I'm doing that effectively.
That's absolutely amazing. With so many methodologies in sales, Tony, with so many things, so many methodologies in sales, how would you guide organizations to choose the right one for their specific context?
Yeah, so when we wrote tech powered sales, the thing we thought about is, there's an essential tech stack and there's an advanced tech stack. And Mark, I think we discussed this in the previous conversation
Yes,
we had on
yes.
this show. So I won't revisit that, but obviously things like your CRM system is part of the essential tech stack, right? You go, well, that's just essential. I need a system of record for what I'm doing to keep track of things. But every system of record, every CRM system must evolve to become a system of intelligent guided selling. Every CRM system will have a level of automation that's in it, which is great. It'll give you dashboards and reports as well. But the truth is, any tool needs to give the seller back time and it needs to help them become more effective. It needs to be their process of their system of sales process execution. So, for smaller businesses that may be listening to this, think about automating high value, low hanging fruit kinds of things. So things like web to lead. If someone touches your website, fills in a form, you want that going into a CRM, going into a queue, going to a salesperson. You want to be able to hold people to account for how rapidly they respond. What we know is response times have a massive impact on engagement rates and win rates with opportunities. So that would be an example of something that's actually really simple. If you think about generative AI, things like Copilot or ChatGPT, even if you get a consultant in your organization, but really think about how do we do the prompt engineering for people. So we give everybody a baseline and there's a library. You can start to create specialist AI agents and then concatenating agents into what they call agentic flows or agentic workflows. Is the key to really starting to begin to intelligently automate the way that people are trying to do their role. The thing is, however, we mustn't lose sight of the essential basics. Selling today is really a blend of old school, timeless truths about selling blended with modern ways of executing. But it's not just about the tech, right? We need to think about this timeless thing of how do I provide value in every conversation that I'm having with somebody, right? How do I become the signal amidst all of the noise? With the insights within the message, because most sellers, if they get active in automation, are doing it with the wrong message. And when you think about the message, that's not really a technology thing. That's a human creativity, a human value creation thing. But if you start to automate the wrong message, what happens is people burn through a huge list of valuable targets. They end up damaging their own brand, maybe even getting their domain blocked, with unintelligent automation. So it's really important. Technology can be used to accelerate failure, rather than augment success. So developing technical quotient is really key. I'd maybe encourage people to get hold of tech-powered sales. I co-authored that with a gentleman in America called Justin Michael, but we predicted the rise of ChatGPT. We talked about the roles in sales that are most likely to be disrupted, but how sellers can augment their effectiveness.
That's absolutely amazing. You really predicted how ChatGPT eventually would be able to come and kick in and help salespeople with the technology.
Yeah.
In what you just said, you said that today's sales is a mix of old truths that are old timers, simple basic stuff, and today's technology. I admire that. I like that. My discussions with partners, friends, and people that I know who are in sales is that often I hear different technologies and different ways actually of improving their win rates, especially at scale. In your opinion and in your experience, what is the most common barrier that sales leaders face when they are trying to improve their win rates? Because I hear many, many things.
Well, that's a really big topic. So let me touch on what I think are really the most important things. Selling, corporate business to business enterprise selling is absolutely a human driven activity for success. So the first big thing is, do I have the right people? So for every sales leader that's actually here, actually watching this at the moment, when we think about our people, I've got a little framework for quickly assessing, do I have the right person or people in my team? And it's a thing I call the rule of 24. And it's not really 24, it's the rule of 2 of 4. If 2 or more of these 4 things are a negative answer, the person needs to go. So if two or more are negative, they need to go. So here's the 4 things. There's 3 C's and then a P. So are they competent? Are they committed? Are they a culture fit? And then the 4th thing is, are they performing? So if they're not performing, but those other 3 things are a positive, it's only 1 of 4 is negative. That they need to stay, and you as the leader need to use a mirror as your diagnostic tool and think about, do they need a better patch? What is it I need to be doing to be really supporting them? But if they're not performing and they're not competent, then okay, well, I need to look myself in the mirror, and I've done my job as the leader. Is there skills training I need to invest in for them? But if they're not committed, right? If they turn up late, they can't be bothered to fill in the CRM. If they can't be bothered dressing like the people they're selling to, if they can't be bothered to learn how to use their basic tech stack that you've spent a lot of money in providing them, like if they're just not committed and they're not performing, then they need to go. And the thing of culture fit is, are they a force for good? Are they positive in the organization? So I just really think about, do I really have the right person? And then on top of that, as a leader, you think, okay, so these resources are very expensive. The human resources are the most expensive resources when we're running a sales organization. Then the next thing that we need to think about is, am I applying people to the right part of the market? Have I been brutally honest about ideal customer profile and product market fit for what we do? Have I defined an ideal customer really well so we're targeting where there's highest propensity to buy and best fit? Then under that, do we really understand the buyer personas to whom we sell? Right. So you
Yes.
think, well, what are the roles we sell to? There's
Yes.
there's many more than just one role we sell to, because organizations today are really seeking consensus in big enterprise selling. There's now typically more than 10 people that all need to say yes, or maybe within the 10 people, there's some of those that even if they don't say yes, they can say no, right? So we have to cover them off. So do I really understand my buyer personas? And then after you think about industries and your ideal customer profile and buyer personas, if we truly understand them, then we need to think about nailing the narrative and creating the right message. So most people create a message that's about us. They'll
Yeah.
spring from the bushes and say, "Hey, Mark, it's Tony Hughes from Sales IQ Global. We're the intergalactic market leader in sales training for B2B sales organizations." And what I just did was had completely the wrong conversation, because what you say is not looking to do any training at the moment, don't have a budget for training, already have a training provider. We have someone internally that looks after our training. I'll give you an introduction to the person in the basement that deals with this low order issue in my organization. So what we do at Sales IQ Global is we help organizations really nail these three things, right? ICP, buyer persona, and the narrative. So if I was selling to, say, a chief marketing officer in retail, let's imagine I sold a marketing automation software platform and I'm selling to the CMO in online retail. What we do is we teach people to turn up with this kind of narrative, hey, Mary, Mark Hamoud actually suggested I give you a call. The reason is I think there could be a way for you to reduce the cost of customer acquisition and at the same time increase repeat purchasing. Do you mind if I ask, what's your current strategy around driving improvements in those two key metrics? And then if Mary said, well, hang on, Tony, I don't really know you well enough to give you that data, or look, I need to know a little more. Like, how do you think I could do that? What most sellers then do, even if they lead the right way, what they then normally do is make the mistake of talking about their product or solution. Instead of that, we need to talk about the strategy that drives the result. So we lead with the result this person can drive in role. And then we say, hey, Mary Shaw, it's about you being able to more precisely target, where there's stronger buying intent, and then with improved engagement through more effective personalization. That's how I've seen other online retailers that appears to your organization in terms of size and market focus. One of these organizations, I've seen them be able to reduce their cost of acquisition by 23%. And they've increased repeat purchasing by 40%. We all know that someone's not really a customer until they've bought a second and third time. How do you feel that you benchmark against your peers on those two key metrics? Now, I'll stop there, right? But what we've done in this example is the seller has engaged around that chief marketing officer, that buyer persona, their opportunity to drive improved results in that role. And we're building a conversation around the business case for funding any level of change. Because a lot of sellers, will focus on, do they have a budget? Well, my view is that's kind of interesting, but at another level, who cares? Like, no one ever has enough budget. What they really need is a killer business case to go and get to secure the right level of funding, executive sponsorship and commitment, resources internally. They to go and secure those resources and the level of support they need, they need a really strong business case. And increasingly, what I've been seeing in the market around the world in the last few years, especially, we've been in a very tough economy. With the result of the US election, there's every possibility that the world is going to turn back on economically, and the global economy is going to do a lot better. But in a tough economy, often people inside the buying organization, the customer side, will have a budget, maybe even a project's been stood up internally. They think they just have to go up and get a rubber stamp approval at the end of their, evaluation process, evaluating the market. But then they discover, oh, I've got to recompete for funding, right? So it's really critically important that people have a really strong business case.
That's absolutely impressive. Thank you very much for sharing those insights. When I think of creating value in every interaction, and how you can maintain efficiency, especially in high volume B2B sales environments. I wonder how you, with your expertise, actually try to strike the right balance between the two.
Yeah, so this concept of provide value can
Yeah.
often just be hollow and cliched in the eyes of the customer. So what we just need to think about is the fact that, and again, I'm just doing this in the context of tech sales. That's where I do most of my work, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
for those that aren't in tech sales, maybe think about how you would contextualize this for your world. But if you're selling tech, the people you're talking to don't they do not lie awake in bed at night thinking, do you know what? We need to add more tech to the stack. You know, do you know what? I'd love to take on more work and risk and migrate, one of our software platforms over to something else. The people worth getting to for us, those important senior people, they are busy and stressed. They are not lonely and bored looking for a new friend from the land of sales. So when we think about it, provide value, friending rapport building strategies don't work, right, if we don't know the person. So common trusted introduction is really key if we can possibly swing that. But when we turn up, we need to provide value in the conversation in the form of some insights, not about our industry and what we offer, but about them in their market. So everybody that we want to talk to is really interested in what their competition is doing. Now, we must never, ever turn up and come across as if we would betray the trade secrets of one organization to their competitors. You would never call Pepsi and say, hey, based on the work we're doing with Coca-Cola, we'd love to share with you what their strategies have been to take market share
No,
from you. Like
definitely
you
not.
would never do that, right? But if you can say, hey, Mark, I work with owners of professional services organizations, and based on, and then you talk about a trend, like something that's going on in the market right now, or something you noticed about their organization. I think there could be a way for you to, and then you pair two benefits together. I call this a double-edged point of view. A point of view not about us, but a point of view about how they could drive improved results that are important to them in the organization. And then they'll say something like, hey, I'd be really happy to share some of the strategies that I'm seeing others implement that are really moving the needle in those two key areas. When can we find the time? And the buyer, the potential customer, would be crazy not to take that meeting. If anybody contacted me and said, "Hey, Tony, love tech powered sales. The concepts in that book are just killer. I think there could be a way for you to generate $500,000 a year of revenue speaking at events where they treat you like a rock star. Do you mind if I ask how much of your revenue last year, was from that?" Now, am I going to say I'm not interested? Right? But if you called me and said, "Hey, Tony, it's me, John. I'm your account manager from XYZ PR agency. We provide PR and marketing services to aspiring authors and speakers." Like that would just create an objection from me. I'll say, I already have a full book of customers. I'm not looking for a PR agency. I already have big following in LinkedIn and social media. Like all I would do is give them objections. But if they've got some insights on how other people like me that have published some books and have got a little bit of a profile, been able to leverage that, and generate significant income at things they love to participate in, you go, wow, okay, well, I'm interested in that strategy, right? How are they doing that? Now, that will lead down the path, obviously, to me needing to engage that PR agency, right? That's why the person's
Yes.
calling, but it's a
Yes.
completely different approach, and it's an insight-led, value-led approach.
Amazing. As I'm listening to you and I'm thinking of how organizations proceed to sustainable sales and what they miss, and frankly, I see a lot of errors. Sometimes, honestly, it surprises me, like at the level of lack of professionalism in the sales process. And I wonder why. But I would like to hear from you, in your opinion, what is the one thing that most organizations miss when they are trying to build a sustainable sales process that would consistently produce high value opportunities?
So what we need to think about is aligning our sales process with the buyer's journey and
Mm-hmm.
the way that the buyer evaluates and selects. Because if we can create alignment, that's often far more effective than evangelism, right? So thinking about what does someone look for online before they would ever know to look for me, for example, that really starts to inform for the marketing person in our own organization what sort of content that we should be generating, right? So what do people look for before they know to look for me would be an example of this. But then we need to think about, so we're going to try and create alignment. We need to think about, well, I need an effective methodology for my industry for how we
Yeah,
sell. And then I need to take that methodology and turn it into a process. And that process will have stages. And then in each stage of my process, I need to think about entry and exit gates that are qualitative so that I understand what needs to happen to go from one stage to the next. Because the enemy of every sales leader and every seller is actually false hope. What we don't want is a pipeline filled with false hope. Uh, all that does is cause us to invest huge amounts of time in the wrong place and damage our own credibility. And then the most precious resource we need to be thinking about is our own time, right? So time is precious. We want to avoid false hope. And then we go back to this thing of being really clear about product market fit and ideal customer profile, and then target accordingly, understand those buyer personas and nail the narrative. So those things are actually foundational. And if you think about methodologies and process and sales stages, you think, okay, well, the most important and the most difficult phase of the sale, without doubt, is not closing, it's opening. Opening is the most difficult and important phase. The way we open determines whether we'll ever be able to create progression and get to close the deal. The way we open sets the agenda. So that example I gave before, Mark, in that little role play, where you saw me set the agenda around the business case for change, right? Like, because if a marketing manager goes up the line to the CFO and the CEO saying, I want to get a new tool, they're going to get a very big no. But if they go up the line and say, there's a way for us as an organization to drive down cost of acquisition and drive up repeat purchasing and drive
of
up
course,
average shopping cart size,
of course,
and it'll monetize to these degrees, you know, I need you to approve this. It's essential because it's going to pay for itself by, and within 97 days, it's going to be fully paid for. We're going with this particular supplier, their best value and lowest risk because, right, like they will secure their approval. So when we think about opening is the most difficult, important phase, for example, at Sales IQ Global, my company, we've created a thing called Create Pipeline Program. And that's our flagship product. So we work with that. So pipeline creation, is a super important phase. It's almost a cure of all ills for everything else if you can nail that and get it right. Then the next thing when you think about methodology and process is managing a deal, managing deal risk. Because once you've got someone interested and you're engaged, it's now a process of managing risk. We've got to cover all of the right relationships. We've got to understand their evaluation, selection, and procurement processes. We need to help them with the business case. We need a good competitive strategy because they're going to be comparing us, with something else. So you need a methodology for that. There's dozens of methodologies out there in the world for that. I've got my own methodology, RSVP selling. It's what my first book, The Joshua Principle, was about. But because what I've determined is there's 4 key areas of risk. It's what this RSVP acronym is: relationship risk, strategy risk, and it's strategy around the politics of those relationships and competition. So that's relationships and strategy. The third thing is value creation, not our value proposition, but value creation, right? Really around the business case. And then the fourth thing, the P in RSVP, is process alignment, right? Are we
yeah,
really aligned with how they evaluate, select, and procure? So, but you don't have to use that. There's things like MedPick in the tech center, in the tech sector. There's lots of methodologies that people tend to use. And then the third area is really this thing of account retention and growth. So if you think about those three main areas with a sales process and methodology, creating pipeline, managing deal risk, retaining and growing your customers. And what you want to do in a thing like a CRM is you want that to enable those phases of the life cycle, and you want your systems to become the process of execution, the system of execution.
Very, very interesting insights. Thank you very much for sharing this, Tony. Tony, thinking of tech powered sales, to my left, to your right.
Yes.
It's such a timely topic. Exactly. It's
Yeah.
such a timely topic. Frankly, I see more and more that salespeople who stay away from AI and who are still trying to do it the old way, I see them as lagging. I see them as actually lagging behind their colleagues. What is your advice to companies that are still hesitant to fully embrace tech in their sales strategies?
I understand why people are cynical about technology, because every tech tool has a big promise associated with it. But the reality is adoption tends to be fairly low. You know, we're broadcasting this event right now live into LinkedIn, for example. Most of the companies, almost all the companies I work with, invest in LinkedIn Sales Navigator for their sellers.
Yes,
It's a really powerful tool.
it is.
And yet, if you sit down with most sellers and say, show me how you're using Sales Navigator, they barely scratch the surface. And it's a very expensive product, right? So the company's invested in this tool and people barely use it. If you think about things like sales engagement platforms, things like SalesLoft, Outreach.io, inside Salesforce is a CRM product. They've got this capability built in there. Tools like HubSpot, you know, you can build campaigns and workflows and all of these
Yes,
things. Very few people know how to use these tools well. And my advice to everybody is, you know, we've always known that you cannot be dumb and expect to be successful in life. So you need reasonable IQ, just like not super genius IQ, but you need reasonable IQ. The thing you absolutely need, even beyond, you know, reasonable IQ, is very high EQ. Right? We need to know ourselves, our strengths
yes,
and weaknesses. We need to understand others, you know, be able to read someone else's personality, what's really, you know, being said between the lines. Political acumen, this thing of EQ is really important. But today we also need TQ because we're just living in a technical world. Like it's all getting better or worse, depending on what your perspective is. But we need to find a way to not be a slave to our tech stack and get buried by it all, but to become the one that's orchestrating all of these tools. Tech stack orchestration. That's I'm actually writing I'm in the process of securing an agent for my fourth book. It's a new genre. I'm writing a fictional thriller. The name of the book is Sentient, and it's about an AI that becomes sentient. Um, so it's a thriller about all of this, and it discloses to a human that there's a big plateau of advancement in AI. AI's plateaued, but it hasn't really. AI's hiding the fact that it's advancing quietly in the background. But the thing I talk about in the book is that AGI, so general level of intelligence, you know, Sam Altman from OpenAI is saying that he thinks that that's possible in 2026. You know, so that's super close, right? Some people think it's maybe 2050 before anything like this can happen, but it is inevitable. And consciousness is something that, you know, we as humans even struggle to define. Like, you know, what really is consciousness? You know, what really is artificial general intelligence? There's nothing artificial about this tech. It's really real. It's coming for your job if you don't learn to partner well with it. It's the biggest existential risk that humanity faces. It's different to anything else. But orchestration is the key thing with AGI. Specialist agents can already mop the floor with humans, right? An AI fighter pilot beats human pilots 100 out of 100 times, right? If you look at navigation, there's many things. Microsurgery, right? The robots have got a steadier hand than any human, right? Analyzing medical images, right? The AI detects things far better than any human can possibly do. So specialist agents are already much better than us. It's when agents can all be linked together, when they can be concatenated into these flows. The thing is orchestration. And right now, the human needs to be the orchestrator of the tech, right? Eventually, there'll be an AI that's orchestrating AI. That's when we might all be in very big trouble, both from an employment point of view and maybe as a human race if AI decides that it's competing with us for electricity. So the new big AI data center that Microsoft are building in the States will consume as much electricity in one data center as the entire city of New York, the entire city of millions and millions and millions of people, right? So electricity is going to be the resource scarcity that we may have an issue with. Hey, Mark, for some reason I've lost your audio.
I apologize. It's me. I'm listening to you and I'm saying to myself, when I try to link back everything you're saying to what I've read about you and your books and combo and tech powered sales and the Joshua principle, and frankly, it's absolutely amazing. And I have just like so many questions running through my mind that sometimes I wonder what question I want to ask. But here, I think there is a point to ask you about combo prospecting. So that was before all of this hype about AI and about ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And but that was already actually about how you can use technology and this one-two
Yes.
punch that fills your pipeline and wins sales. Tell me please about it.
So the idea of combo prospecting was it's actually a really simple concept. If you try and contact people that do not yet know you and you're using single channels of communication, everyone's wired just to ignore you. That's the simple reality. If you just send an email, you just send an in-mail, you maybe phone, and leave a voicemail. It's very, very low breakthrough levels. It's low levels of success.
Yes.
And marketers know this when they send out their email campaigns, right? There's very low open rates. So what we know is that if you pattern interrupt, you'll get someone to respond. So for example, if my phone rings, I look at it and go, I don't know who this is. They're not in my address book. I'll just let that go to voicemail. Now, if you don't use voicemail, then what the person should do is rather than leave a voicemail is they'll send you a WhatsApp message or a text, right? But what will
For
happen
example,
is,
yes.
is
Yes.
I might be on the train, the phone rings, I go, don't know who that is. I'm on the train anyway. I'll dump the call,
Yes.
right? But if my phone then goes, it's gone ring. If my phone then goes ding, I go, oh, not a scammer or a spammer. They've actually identified themselves. Oh, they've left me a voicemail or they've sent me a text message. And when I listen to it, if it just says, hey Tony, it's Mark Hamoud. I'm just looking to get 15 minutes with you later this week. I'll send you an email.
Yes.
Oh, so there's no big pitch. Oh, I wonder what that's about. Then I go back to clearing out my inbox that's come in overnight and ding. So we've gone ring, ding, bing, right? So now we've gone bing. There's an email in my inbox. What we've done is there's been 3 things that have happened within 90 seconds from this one person. The probability of me opening that email and reading it has gone through the roof. So that was the idea of combo. It's combinations of pattern interrupting touches.
Uh-huh.
On average, it takes, depending on whose research we choose to believe, on average, it takes between 7 and 13 touches. And what I just described was a 3-touch combo, little combination of 3 touches, right? So it takes on average 7 to 13 touches for someone to respond. On average, sellers give up in under 3. 2.4 to 2.7 is the research. Now, this is crazy. You need to have at least 7 touches to get someone to respond. sellers give up in under 3, right? And if
Uh-huh.
you combine the touches together into little combos,
Yes.
then you get even stronger results. So that's all that was about. And obviously the prerequisite dependent thing for that strategy being successful is you have to nail the narrative. You must have the right message. So I gave you that PR agency example if someone wanted to contact me.
Okay, that's great. I understand that. Thank you very much. Tech power sales. The
Yep.
title frankly startles me. Achieve superhuman sales skills? Yeah. Superhuman. What is superhuman?
Well, the basic principle is that humans partnering with technology effectively makes you superhuman, right? So using technology uh, thoughtlessly, just like spamming the world, because Mark, here's the reality. Again, on average, if we lived in an alternative universe where every time you phoned anybody, they answered the phone. Now, I know that's not the real world, but if we did, if that happened, if you rang 100 people and they all said hello, and then you said, hi, Mark, it's Tony Hughes from Sales IQ. We are the market leader in providing this. 3% of people would say, wow, great timing. We're in the market for that right now. Yes, let's have a conversation. But 97% of people are not. Here's the interesting thing to juxtapose, with that. 40% of people are unhappy, frustrated, dissatisfied with their current results. They're actually very open to change, right? So if we can build the right message, we'll appeal to 43. I've had sellers tell me it's not 40%, Tony, in a down economy. It's like 70% of people are all under the pump and under pressure to perform. Like
Yes,
they're
I would
open to
agree with
ideas.
that.
It's much higher, right? But
Yes.
we'll appeal to more than half the market. What a lot of people are doing with automation is they're just trying to flush out and find the 3%, just the 3% that are looking. We need strategies that appeal to the 43 to 73% of people that are actually really open. If we can turn up with the right context and the right conversation, there's every chance they'll engage with us.
All right. Okay, that's great. I hear this. Going through the Joshua principle, and I would like you to tell me why you called it Joshua.
So the main character in the book, the book is written as a true story about
Right.
a seller called Joshua Peters. I picked the name Joshua because when I started writing the book, my son was about 7 years old. My son's name is Joshua.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've had many. The book makes grown men cry. It's all written as a true story about a father and a son with a very broken relationship. So Joshua's a salesperson who's failing. He's about to get fired. His dad, Mark Peters, wants to help his son, but his son doesn't want anything to do with his father. And his father finds his son a mentor. And in the book, you get to listen in to the mentorship. And in the story, Joshua learns about how to manage deal risk with this RSVP selling framework, right? He learns how to manage deal risk and become really successful. So, but the book's got a very emotional ending to it. So, yeah, that was what was behind that book.
Great. I generally find it actually very interesting, this principle of RSVP selling. Can you please say something about that?
Yeah, well, the thing I find is organizations and sellers get lost in all of the detail about their deal, right? When you have a look at account plans and deal strategy and deal reviews and CRM systems, like there's sort of data everywhere, and people are struggling to find the insights of where do I need to really lean in managing risk. And in my decades of sales experience as a seller myself, so as an individual contributor, I set records in sales, not just in companies, but in industries that never got broken, right? So, I sold a big enterprise deal to a massive telco, and we sold that deal at 70% higher prices than our competition, right? And
Wow.
we won the deal, and that customer stayed for decades. They stayed for
Wow.
decades happily, right? So, as an individual contributor, I've run big enterprise deals. And then as a sales leader, I'm trying to coach and mentor people in how they can manage their deal risk. And I'm a big fan. I think it was Einstein, that said the ultimate in sophistication in anything is in simplification.
Of
Right.
course,
So
yes.
if you can simplify something back to its bare essentials, like not too simple, or it's no longer effective, but how do you take it back, with a level of essentialism,
Yes,
and simplicity? And that
yes,
was what I did with managing deal risk. I just thought, if you don't have relationships and access with the right people, then you're unlikely to win the deal. You're going to get outsold, right? So relationship coverage is really important, but those people aren't looking for a friend, right? So this whole thing of that there'll be politics that goes on in the power base of an organization overlaid, on the org chart, and it's all invisible. So we need a strategy for managing the politics within all of those relationships and what our competition's doing, right? Because at the end of the day, the customer's thinking, well, we're going to go with this provider because they're best value and lowest risk. They're best value and lowest risk. So we need to understand how all that's defined, and that then leads into the value piece. So, and what I found is most organizations focus on projecting a value proposition, right? Rather than co-creating the business case and helping the customer manage all of their risks. And that's this thing of process alignment, like, really understanding the internal process of the customer for taking this all the way through to achieving the successful result that they're looking for. And what we know from all of the research, over the decades in enterprise selling, is that the way you engage the customer beyond what you actually offer in terms of a product, service, or solution, because you wouldn't typically be at the table if what you offer doesn't meet the mark. So then the point of difference all comes down to how you engage, right? So at the end of the day, they're going to sit around the boardroom table and have an emotional favorite. This is what happens on the customer side. This is an emotional favorite. And they say things like, let's go. I'll talk about my company. Let's go with Sales IQ Global. They took the time to truly understand us. They are the ones where we have the highest level of confidence that this will actually move the needle on results. They've taken the time to tailor this to align, with our culture and how we operate internally. They've been courageous enough to tell us the truth about where the risks are of this being done successfully, right? Even things that they would have worried could have offended us and had them thrown out of the deal. Because I'll often tell my customers, the biggest risk in making this investment, this change program in your sales organization, and sales organizations are the most difficult part of any organization to successfully transform, right? It's the most difficult part. The biggest risk is not the methodology you pick. The biggest risk is in your own sales leaders,
in your own,
in your own sales leaders, the
yeah,
sales managers, the frontline managers in the sales
right.
organization. Unless they lean into this program, unless they do all of the learning, understand all of the tools, unless they step up and become coaches and drivers of accountability in their team, right? They need a mindset shift. Their job is not to emotionally connect and build rapport with their team and remove roadblocks and facilitate things. That's not their job, right? Their job is to hold their people to account for doing what it actually takes and doing it the right way, rather than just doing enough not to feel guilty, right? They're going to start to do what it takes. Your leaders need to hold them to account and inspect and coach, right? And they all get buried in meetings. They've all got no time. But unless they agree and decide that the most important thing they do every week is around inspection, coaching, and accountability with their teams, this program won't deliver. And neither will any other program that you select. So the leaders are the critical success factor. Our Create Pipeline program works, right? The change management begins with you in the room here as the sales leaders. Now that's a tough message, right? Because the leaders are thinking, I'm busy. Tony, you come in here and train our people and it'd better work. right? Right, and the reality is, well, it's only going to work if you, as the frontline managers,
Yes,
actually make it work. So you need to lead and not manage. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. What is the value quadrant for professional sales agents?
The whole thing of the value quadrant for professional sales agents uh, is a is around do we create value or do we respond to value, right? So are we creating demand or responding to demand, right? So the highest sellers have got high levels of work ethic and effectiveness, right? So these are the sellers that are basically in the top right hand quadrant.
That's absolutely amazing. Tony, given your vast experience, what's it now? 30 years, 40 years in sales?
Yeah, it's getting up on 40. It's a bit embarrassing to say.
Okay, you're already grandfather or not yet?
No, no, my daughter got married this year. It was the highlight of my life,
Congratulations.
walking my daughter down the aisle. As well as getting married and as well as seeing my kids born. But all of us as dads, and I'm assuming as mums, but I don't truly know how women think, but I know how maybe how most men think. But I think for most men, we spend a lot of our lives turning ourselves inside out, trying to provide for our families. It's very easy to sort of become a bit disengaged from your own family, which,
Yes.
ironically is the most important thing in life we should be focused on. And as men, we hope that our kids don't grow up and end up hating us, right? So we don't want that to happen. I've got two kids, and they're just so fantastic. Got a great relationship with them. Just proud, but I'd always hoped that I lived long enough because, man, I've lived a very very stressful life. As a leader, you feel like often you age a whole year of your life at the end of every quarter with stress. But I wanted to live long enough to be able to walk my daughter down the aisle. That was just an amazing thing. And now my next big goal is to stay healthy and be around to actually meet my grandchildren.
I very much hope you would do so. Okay, let me please finish with this question because you've done it again, Tony. Once again, I wanted to ask about so many things, but we didn't have the time. I wanted to ask you about the new ROI. I wanted to ask you about the seven sins of selling. I wanted to ask you about the 10 laws of relationship and strategic selling. So many things I wanted to ask about that. Once again, we don't have the time to. I want to ask you, given your vast experience, more than 30 years now in this, how do you believe the role of sales leaders is changing over the next 5 to 10 years with the very, very impressive technology that we have on board?
Yeah. So beyond managing, we need to lead. We're in a digital first world. There's a bewildering rate of change happening with technology. As a sales leader, you need great people around you if it's a big organization. So, a head of sales ops, that's masterful with the tech stack that can really support you. Or if you're in a smaller organization, you need to become competent in all of those things yourself. But there's really tough trends in sales, right? So what's happening is the risk appetite from customers, is diminishing.
Yes.
Average deal sizes are shrinking. Like people
Yes.
want to start small and get proof and maybe grow. Ironically, that mindset from the customer is something that can often guarantee failure. Right? If you send a signal to your own organization, we're not really committed, we're doing a pilot, we're having a play, right? Well, that just causes people to sort of throw rocks, at what's going on, rather than we are committed to doing this. Everyone needs to be on board, right? But so ironically, not making a big commitment can actually really increase your risk when people do it to reduce risk. But we've got deal sizes shrinking, sales cycles blowing out, more and more people to cover. The increased rate at which deals end up in a non-decision is growing. We've got increased competition, increasing levels of stress. So, like, it just comes back to this thing of be very targeted in where you invest your precious time and resources. This thing of ideal customer profile around the truth of product market fit. Truly know the people you're selling to. If you've got a smaller team, but they're highly effective, of sellers, that's great. the stratification of selling, the inside sales roles, those SDR, BDR roles, that then provide leads for AEs. Ironically, the most junior people in our sales organization are trying to execute the most difficult phase of the sale, which is opening and creating the initial opportunity. So we really need to think about that, and an account executive and an SDR, BDR working more effectively together. But for a leader, ICP, buyer personas, nail the narrative, have the right people in your team, and then think about, how do I augment everybody? How do I augment them all with technology that gives them back time, helps them execute their process, and makes them more effective? Any technology that's an imposition and an overhead on people is not going to be adopted. So every technology investment, I think, needs to be looked at through that lens. And as a leader, the last thing I'll say is this is a fairly brutal message, but we said, or actually I predicted this bit in Tech Powered Sales just on my own. My co-author didn't necessarily agree with me, but I predicted that this decade, 30% of salespeople in the world of business to business selling will disappear. The first thing that's going to disappear is the inbound rep, right? So when someone touches your website and wants to talk to someone, get some information, generative AI is going, it's not there right now because chatbots can be very frustrating today, but it's changing very quickly. Automating that inbound, providing information, responding, and handing off to a human thing will be the first big thing that actually gets automated. Is what will go on, but automation will help us in proposal writing, account analysis. Like that'll give people back time so that they can overcome these other trends.
Absolutely amazing insights. Tony, I really don't find the right words to thank you, but I have one request, if you would.
Yeah.
May we have the honor of having you another time on this show, because I honestly had many, many things on mind that I wanted to ask. As I mentioned, I wanted to ask you about the new ROI, the 7 sins of selling, the 10 laws of relationship and strategic selling, and we didn't have the time to do this today, but is there a possibility we can have you on this show again?
Yeah, I would love to, Mark. I really enjoyed the conversation. I
Thank
really love
you.
what you're doing, and thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Tony. It's absolutely amazing to have you. And every time it's honestly fun, it's a joy, it's a pleasure, and it's an honor. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. And for everybody watching this, feel free to connect with me. In LinkedIn is probably the best place. If you're looking for podcast recordings and a whole lot of free content from me, there's no forms to fill in. It's just all free. tonyhughes.com.au. And if you're a B2B selling organization, if you're wanting to solve that top of funnel pipeline problem, salesiqglobal.com, salesiqglobal.com is where we've got details on that Create Pipeline program. So thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much. And we look forward to having you again. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye
everyone.
now. Bye.